Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. How do we tell people we were attacked by fast killer sloths? We may have to keep that one close to the vest. I'm Anthony.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Eric.
Welcome to issue number 258 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast. Each and every week, we meet here to talk about comic books. This week's show, here are our topics. We have a club discussion, which is where we jump into the long-awaited sequel to Slowpokes with Slowpokes 2, the Kickstarter comic. Then we're going to do our weekly reviews. That's where we go back and forth, and we talk about the books that we've been reading, whether they're new, whether they're old. We're going to talk about them there. And then we are going to do the news segment, which is going to be part 2 of 2 of our previews preview. Listen to last week's episode to catch part 1, where we covered the Marvel and DC catalogs for March for products coming out in May and beyond. This week, we will talk about the giant previews catalog, which is the independent publishers and the merchandise and the apparel and the collectibles and all that fun stuff. So that'll be the action-packed lineup for this week's show. But we will start it off here with the club discussion with an issue called Slowpokes 2. The Sloth Horror sequel is here, and this time, we're going to camp. How will LJ, Charity, Hurricane, and Karate Carlos fare at Camp Pokemoke? This comic is done by Steve Urena, Juan Romero, and Sean Reinhart. All right, when in 2020 we talked about Slowpokes number 1 here. This was a comic I stumbled across through the Comic Book Club podcast, the long-running podcast, live podcast out of New York. And they had Steve on the podcast talking about this Sloth horror comic, and suddenly I got very interested. And then there was a little option within that donation tiers on Kickstarter. One of the higher tiers was to donate and to have a small little role in what would eventually be the sequel to Slowpokes. So when the first issue came out, I'd shared the news with the club here, and a couple of us had picked it up and really enjoyed it. That first issue setup is, it kind of feels like Superbad in a way, like the kind of raunchy comedy, raunchy teen, modern type of comedy. And they were on like a field trip, and they went to this like science lab location. And it was just it's almost like going to like a Willy Wonka type of thing, because then they had this amusement park that was inside this lab, and they're just kind of going around, but there was some secret stuff that was happening behind the scenes, that they were basically trying to save the existence of sloths, and they wanted to basically speed up the breeding and save the species. And when they're testing this lab stuff, something goes wrong and basically turn them into murdering creatures at super fast speeds. So that was like basically the idea of Slowpokes 1. Now Slowpokes 2, another Kickstarter campaign. It came out a couple months ago, and I know some of our members have had it and read it already. My copy was a little delayed because I had some extra bonuses that were just due to supply chains and shippings and all that kind of stuff. So before we get into the actual comic, I was going to show off that my water I'm drinking here is sponsored by this can koozie. I don't actually have anything for a can, so it just fit the bottle, nice and perfectly there. So got the Slowpokes can koozie, got the Slowpokes t-shirt, which I know that Kirby also had backed the option for the t-shirt. There's a Slowpokes poster, which is right off to the side of my screen here. There's a Slowpokes kind of like a little, not like a postcard, but just a little, just kind of mini little advertisement card. And then, of course, the issue. Now, that's where we're going to dive in. Myself and Kirby have read this. if anybody is interested, I will have links to how to come across these comics. Without doing, full spoilers for this brand new one, I kept it, just kind of gave the overall plot and stuff for that first one, because it is such a limited series and it's the way it's spaced out through Kickstarter. We will talk about what we thought of it and everything, but this won't be a page by page dissection, because there's definitely some dissection going on within the pages of this book, with the sloths murdering some people. So Slowpokes 2 immediately picks up where the first one left off, as you have these kids that are basically on the run, and they had basically taken the school bus, and the bus breaks down and puts them into the setting of issue number 2, which is right here on the cover at Camp Pokemoke, which is rewritten with some blood for Camp Slowpokes. So that's the awesome cover that they have there. But yeah, that's the setting of issue number 2, is the camp setting. You definitely have the same vibe and feel of that first issue, with all the comedy. So all the the raunchy jokes and teen comedy type of thing. All that stuff is still very present. We meet a lot of new characters. We meet the person who owns and runs this camp, which is just a wild character and pretty ridiculous. Like throughout both of these issues, every page seems like there's just a lot happening, that is like there's not any dull moments. Like if there's any lulls in the action, there's always just constant joke flow going on. Like every character is either telling a joke or getting made fun of from a joke, and everyone's just kind of there's so much happening. And I think it's a very pardon the pun, but it's a very fast-paced story as far as the way these issues flow here. But yeah, so our main kids are basically on that bus and got held up on the side of the road, found this camp looking for help. They meet a bunch of these new characters, and of course the murdering sloths are right there to have another adventure. So that's kind of the overall idea there. Throw it over to Kirby if you want to start talking about what you thought here of Slowpokes 2.
Yeah, it was just as fun as the first book. I like our group of characters that come to the new camp, of course, from the first issue, and then everybody in this camp kind of deserved to get attacked, and we're dealing with Camp Putin, or we got Putin in a headdress running around camp. Making them do all kinds of weird things at this establishment, and so this camp deserved to get shut down in the first place. But yeah, it was just as much fun. And you could almost call this the Anthony issue. I mean, there's just so many characters throughout here that you got Anthony with tattoos.
You think I've been drawn in several times?
Yeah, Anthony in the early days with a little bit of hair, just starting to grow a beard as a mascot.
Yeah, it does kind of have all my the evolution of my own personal character, and yeah.
Anthony the camp counselor.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, and maybe this is sort of a slight spoiler, but now I'm kind of flipping through and I'm looking at some of these characters, and yeah, I could see that definitely the guy. Yeah, I've been kind of going with the the shaved head and the beard combo and stuff like that, but I'm kind of flipping through this comic, and there's a part of this where it's almost kind of a rescue team kind of comes in as they try to reclaim these sloths. And I don't know, if I were to zoom in on maybe on the profile of one of these characters, I don't know if that is oh wait, that is me. So yes, as I alluded to in the setup, was that I would be drawn into the next issue, and catching the profile there of now this is spoilers, but I will say it was a spoiler upon the purchase of it, because the gimmick was to be killed off in the next issue of Slowpokes. So I basically come in, I'm in the background of you've got these kind of gliders going on, these people coming in, and I'm kind of off in the background there, and then one sloth leaps up into the air and basically starts ripping out my insides. I'm falling from the sky, and there's another guy who I assume is another backer, because I think there was 8 or 10 of us total. And that basically he gets all bloodied up and ripped apart, and then there's just a lot of craziness going on. Now, I will say I do have another moment, and I actually had some. I didn't know I was going to have lines in this, so I had a speaking role. But to also keep it somewhat spoiler free, I won't talk about what happens on the next page, because there is still more to happen there. But yeah, so that was it was a long wait for it. I was excited for it, knowing that during the time of Slowpokes 1 and Slowpokes 2, Steve was writing and creating many other comics, and Zombie Day Night, which is a poster just almost off my screen here, and one that you can see right below it is the Ex Machina, which I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's like Ex Machina, but it's Xmas, and so he had co-created those books and basically had launched Kickstarters, and I believe we had gotten, if not all of them, at least some of those. I got all those, and working with different creators and different artists, and just basically getting his name out there and building an audience and trying to get the people to jump onto Zombie Date Night and maybe discover Slowpokes or vice versa. And I guess it's a good way of just keeping other artists busy and working on other titles to kind of keep coming out with things. So while I was waiting for these other books to come, or as these books were coming out, I was waiting for issue number 2 of Slowpokes, and he did give me the sneak peek, and didn't have any of the lettering, but it was pretty exciting to see that. And I think the artist definitely, Juan Romero, nailed a pretty good profile shot there. I think that really he blessed me with more hair. This is me from probably 10 to 15 years ago. So yeah, I will, it's a nice little time capsule to have that in a comic there. But yeah, so that was a fun little moment. Thank you, Kirby, though, for having that sharp eye and realizing that, yeah, this really is the Anthony issue.
Yeah, it's like I got the spoiler, but totally forgot about what the picture was. So when I was reading it, I was watching for it, and I'm like, that's Anthony there. That's Anthony. And I had the wife check it out, and of course she also took her a bit to figure it out. But yeah, it's I love how proud the Sloths are of themselves. It's like we're fast, we're badasses, we can do what we want now.
Yeah, they almost have sort of a personality as they're released from the lab and all that kind of stuff. And I even like the one when they're jumping out of the trees, and this middle one here, just the arms flailing and just kind of gliding off of the tree. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they definitely got that gremlin feel to them, the way they like to play with their food.
But yeah, it's like Kirby said, a ton of fun, just as fun as the first one, and it keeps the same vibe. I wasn't sure if it was going to be where it was going to take place in the storyline, and it's just like if you were turning the next page of the first issue, they jump right into it. So I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a year later, and now different kids and they invade the summer camp or something like that. So it was exciting to get that next of an adventure.
And they're working on the third one now, so, and I'll be killed in that one, hopefully.
Hopefully you'll be killed. So it's always it's a great sentence, yeah, when you're talking about a comic with
I want to be slaughtered. I want to be disemboweled too.
But yeah, going through what Steve has done with these other comics here and getting these other properties and just getting his name out there and everything. Yeah, I've really dug what he's been doing. We'll definitely the next time he has a campaign for something, we'll extend the invite. I know he's done a pretty decent amount of podcasts out there, and has been a guest on many different shows, but yeah, we'll reach out to him the next time he's got a Kickstarter to promote.
And you
Um,
time a new Kickstarter comes out too, if you haven't got the back issues, they usually have a tier where you can order the other ones.
Yep. And also that perfect segue into the information I pulled from his social media to follow Steve. Steve Urena, spelled Urena. And going through this here is the Steve Urena on all of those, any of the socials and things like that, wherever. I think he's on most of them, but it's the Steve Urena. And his main site that you can go directly to. I've been looking at a bunch of different pronunciations of this, but it's like a coffee cup. So you can either say it, coffee or Ko-fi or Kofi, but it's ko-fi.com/the Steve Urena. And so once again, ko/fi.com. And on that site, he has available at least to purchase the digital copies. Now for the Slowpokes 2 issue, it didn't say digital in the description, so I don't know if that was a discrepancy or if he is just actively selling current stock. It's possible he just sold out whatever Kickstarter backers had for the first ones, but you can at least get digital copies of all the things that we've talked about. And otherwise, once again, we'll talk about the when he comes up with another Kickstarter, and yeah, he usually has those options to catch up and stuff. So, but if you do want a physical copy of my death in a comic book, it's a possibility. You can reach out to him and he may have some of those copies, or at the very least check it out digitally. Both of these super fun. Yeah, even though this one picks up right after the first one, there's not a lot of information. I don't think that's needed. Like, I think it is a good, like, if you were just flipping through the TV and you just happen to see some random horror movie on sci-fi or something, I think it's very entertaining and readable as just the second issue. If anything, you're going to go back and want to get that one. But basically, I just kind of told you that little backstory about just with that lab and that school trip that they did. Other than that, there's not, wasn't like a ton of world building that you missed. They basically just jump into the action pretty quick. So
Yeah, you could read it without having the first one, no problem.
but yeah, I think once you do, you're going to want to go back and be like, all right, time for the prequel issue. But yeah, so yeah, that was a ton of fun. It feels good. It's I had my first appearance in X-Ray Robot, and then this thing happened a few short months after that when the campaign started. And then as he started doing those other books, I did those tiers as well. So for future issues of Zombie Date Night and Ex Machina, I also have that tier about, well, the one for Zombie Date Night was being turned into or bit by a zombie. I don't recall what the actual detail, but I will be drawn into the Christmas one too. But so I might have a trifecta of death coming here at the hands of Steve. So
Yeah, and after them putting Cocaine Bear out in theaters, there's no reason that they don't put this out in theaters.
yeah, this Kirby and I have seen that movie, and having read these comics, like, it's I would say they're very comparable as far as like the fun and entertainment level and this the humor, and yeah. Cool. So yeah, I think that is everything to kind of talk about that. Any other closing thoughts on Slowpokes? Otherwise,
Get out there and buy it.
yes, yeah. So check it out. Ko-fi.com. That's with a dash in the middle. ko-fi.com/the Steve Urena. Otherwise, go and just follow him in his socials and find those links there. Yeah, that's going to do it. So it was good to finally talk about Slowpokes too. It was well worth the wait. And that's not the end of our club discussions here at the club, because here's a little preview of what's coming down in the next couple weeks here and months. We have Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer special #1, which will most likely be on the next show that we do, depending on the attendance and availability. The Punisher #10, Berserker #12, It's Jeff #1, and Once Upon a Time at the End of the World #5. And since we are doing the preview, that is often how we usher in new club discussions as we go through the preview catalog. And as long as we see at least 3 of the club members who have all, put something on their list or are intrigued by something that somebody else says, once we start seeing that, so always speak up if you see somebody else talk about what you're excited about, because that is how we usher in the next club discussion. All right, that is going to do it for this segment, but let's jump over to the next one, which is the weekly reviews. All right, everybody over there on the YouTubes. If you've been following these YouTube episodes, you are getting the behind the scenes, off camera saving of GarageBand to make sure the audio version is ready to go. I know how to solve the audio problem because we've been having some problems getting it on our hosting site, which goes over to iTunes, but I do know how to resolve it. I just there's one thing I'm waiting for in the mail so I can get those episodes back in order. But thanks to YouTube and thanks to the Zoom account, thanks to Kirby, we were able to get these episodes out there in YouTube form as well. All right, we are saved over here. We are re-recording for the weekly review. So we are going to jump right into it once I get all my windows in order. And I hope everybody at home has their windows in order. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the weekly reviews. The first one I am excited to talk about is basically a project that was going to be an instant buy. I didn't need to read the synopsis at the time when I purchased it. I just saw the creative team. So here we are with Phantom Road #1. Dom is a long-haul truck driver attempting to stay ahead of his tragic past. When he stops one night to assist Birdie, who has been in a massive car crash, they pull an artifact from the wreckage that throws their lives into 5th gear. Suddenly, a typical midnight run has become a frantic journey through a surreal world where Dom and Birdie find themselves the quarry of strange and impossible monsters. It's grindhouse horror meeting high concept supernatural fantasy in the first issue of a bold new miniseries. Now, here's a creative team that drew me to this book. We have Jeff Lemire, we have Gabrielle H. Walta, we have Jordi Belair, Steve Wands, and Greg Lockard. That is a heavy hitting team right there. And this one is brought to you by Image Comics. So the synopsis did a good job there, but I'll kind of give a little rundown here. You got Dom, who is our main character, semi-truck driver, just, making his routes, making his deliveries, stopping in at a diner. First couple pages, you're just getting the life of a truck driver out there on the road. And the crash that was mentioned occurs, which brings our Dom character to meet Birdie, who is basically at on the side of the highway now, freaking out, reacting to what just had happened. And there's something strange that is in front of the cars here, something that is laying in the highway. And it's, they're kind of wondering what it is and wonder if they should go up and touch it. There is a big moment that happens, a big double splash page that I won't show just because it's a pretty entertaining piece for the story going further and what happens when they interact with this object. But once that happens, it kind of returns back to our, I guess it doesn't turn back to the setting it was. It almost makes it more bleak and almost like changes it and kind of makes it into The Walking Dead in a way, as far as the sky and there's no color anywhere, and our characters who are on the front cover, so I will show that again. That's when we see these mysterious creatures that are just out there walking. And then so that's kind of where the book story kind of sets up. I won't talk about anything in the back half of the book with the interaction and stuff like that. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. I think if you are a fan of The Walking Dead, This would definitely appeal to you. It adds a little bit of a supernatural sci-fi type of element to it, which is going to be left for the future issues to dive into further. But yeah, I really dug it. Right away, I did send Damon, one of our club members. I sent him the information about this. He used to be a truck driver, and we had talked about the Noctera book that's out there that he picked up with because it was dealing with truck driving and stuff like that. So I sent this one over to him. It fits in the realm of horror and stuff that he likes. And there might be when you look at this character, let me get another close up here. It might be something where it's just like, did Damon fill out a Kickstarter? Because I don't know if Damon got written into this book too, or they knew his light. I mean, it's got his the goatee going on there, but the truck driving and all that stuff. So yeah, maybe hopefully Damon will check that out. He said he was pretty intrigued by it, but yeah, I think if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, that's an easy sell right there. Jeff Lemire, Gabriel Walta, awesome creators. So this book should just sell itself. That is Phantom Road issue number 1. Kirby?
I checked out The Chosen from Dynamite. It's a one-shot. Spinning out of the events of chaos, The Chosen are a group of monster teens who travel the world with one agenda: hunting other monsters. In this double shot of horror, action, and humor, The Chosen team up with the powerful witch Suspira to take down Epitaph, a force of evil bent on using 3 co-eds to help him return from the dead. Then the Chosen travel to an East Coast hamlet to do battle against a strange ancient monster. 2 terrifying tales that explore the darkest corners of the Chaos universe. I read a lot of Chaos stuff, and I have never seen any of these characters. So I was really surprised because they're awesome. They're a lot of fun. You kind of got like a witch, a vampire, a couple demon-like characters. The 2 guys just basically hulk up when they get done, and then the girls have their witch and vampiric powers. And they just work together to hunt down people that are misusing their magic or whatever their powers are. And they're just basically the Chaos Scooby Gang, I guess. And like it says, you get 2 nice stories out of it. The artwork's a lot of fun. The storylines flow nicely in here. And then I'm just really surprised I never came across these characters between Lady Death and Evil Ernie and all those type of characters. I figured for sure these beings would be part of that world, but I'm not sure what they're connected with Chaos. I will have to find out more, but yeah, I really enjoyed this. The Suspira character, she's an older witch that they come across and battle for a bit, and then they find out that they're both trying to take down the evil entities, and then ended up working together. And one of our characters, I can't remember, she's got funky abilities that allow her to, she's pretty much immortal. She's can play around with realms and stuff like that. Just, yeah, she's not a shapeshifter. She's not a witch. It's a whole different type of character, and I didn't write it down or anything. But yeah, you get 5 different fun characters that hook up with another powerful witch, and they take down some pretty evil baddies throughout both these stories, and it was a lot of fun. It's like a mini trade. Definitely worth checking out by Dynamite.
Cool. All right, let's jump over to Katie. Hello, what do you have for us today?
Hi, everyone. This week I have 2 Dungeons and Dragons entries. The first is going to be Dungeons and Dragons: A Darkened Wish, number 1 through 5. I'm holding number 1 here. This came out a few years ago from IDW, who do quite a lot of Dungeons and Dragons comics. This is by Walters, Fowler, and Photos. So it's written by B. Dave Walters, art is by Tess Fowler, colors by J. Photos, and letters by Tom Long. So this series kind of tells our adventurers' stories in two parts. It's flashing back between the end of their adventure when they're level 20, fighting the ultimate bad guy, and when they are teenagers just starting out. Number one, we see they're working on this final battle, and then we also see when they're little kids, like all in their same hometown, that because they're like 16, 17, 18, they don't think it's all that great, but throughout the course of the story they'll reflect on that. They all decide they're going to become adventurers and sign up with the White Sails Company. So we get kind of a pirate vibe in these first couple of books, which I really appreciated. I liked that a lot. And then the backstory is they are facing, I can't get it all on screen. Okay, so they're going to end up facing one of the members of their party in the final battle. And at first you're like, oh, he went rogue. And then we find out that there are two warring dragons who are competing against each other for territory and basically using everyone in the town as kind of like pawns and stuff. So they're attacking different towns, including our adventurers' hometown. And to put a stop to it and to get revenge for the violence done against their families and such, our adventurers make a devil's bargain with one of these dragons, and because he's a liar and a cheat and is backed by, we'll find out later, the Asmodeus, who's one of the main, pretty popular evil characters within Dungeons and Dragons, as well as our own mythology. One of the party members ends up possessed, and the other one becomes kind of like a warlock or an evil wizard. And there's a big gap in the story where here's the pages where the possession is happening and fighting some bad guys. One critique I have of this is I really think this should have been a 6-issue story, and we should have explored, what happens after the turning point with our characters where they start to make these bad choices. Just all of a sudden jumping to the end and telling me like all these big emotional things happened, and it's a big deal for them to finally literally confront demons, like not even metaphorically, literally confront a demon. It didn't have the impact on me because I didn't see as much of that. It went from, okay, they're teenagers and they're really upset their friend got possessed and they're upset their town got burned down, to, okay, now they're like 45 years old and apparently 15 years or so have passed and they used to be friends, but they're not anymore, but they still love each other and stuff like that. I felt that would have been more impactful if I got to see that, maybe some vignettes of that, where, like I said, I think this could have been a 6-issue. That would have been perfect. It is one of 5. That would have just made it, more meaningful and made that growth more powerful. Also following the premise of show, don't tell. I will say, I remember when this was coming out, it got delayed for quite a while, and I was trying to Google it and see if anyone had reasons why. My quick search did not result in that, but if I had to hazard a guess, maybe that is why part of the story it feels like something's missing. So that, could contribute to that. I enjoyed the art. To me, the art was the highest point in this. Tess Fowler has a great style for fantasy books. Just commenting on her art skills, I think she does very well with that. My favorite character in all of this was the Kenku, which is just basically like a giant sentient crow. Well, crows are sentient, but like humanoid crow. I like that race in general. I think they're just kind of neat and pretty funny. And the payoff was good, except, our heroes nobly sacrifice themselves, and then it sort of seems like they're going to come back, and then it just ends with the end ? And it felt like, did I forget a page? Like, I know this is a secondhand copy. Like, did a page get missed from it? So that is my critique, is it felt like we skipped a lot of the story, and that made it tough for me to enjoy, but I did want to highlight the positive parts where, you know, it's an official D&D comic. We had some really nice art. You know, I love dragons, so even when they're evil dragons, it's always pretty cool to see them. And in my mind, dragons are good. They're just misunderstood. But they took it in the traditional route, which is that the dragons are evil. And it's a cute little adventuring party. I like them better when they're kids. And we got cool D&D creatures. So that's my review of Dungeons and Dragons: A Darkened Wish. It's from IDW. And I will be reviewing another Dungeons and Dragons title next round. So check it out, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's jump over to Eric. What do you have for us?
Hello. I actually have 2 Frank Castle books this week. First one, Punisher War Journal base. Thank you again, Kirby. This is this isn't continuing the story of the Punisher that we've been having as a, you know, as a club discussion. It more or less is like an aside or a filler while we wait for number 10 to come out. It's supposed to be this month, but no. Anyway, I'm not there. But this one takes place entirely in the flashback mode. And it's, you know, it has somewhat the similar coloring. Different artist, though. This artist is, sorry, I'm going to check. Oh, I am going to ruin this first name. I want to say Gibril, Dgibril, Gibril Morissette fan.
I've seen the name, and I would say I think you did an all right job. I
Okay.
would be in the same boat as you.
Yeah, I hate it when my name gets butchered. I hate butchering others, but if you're watching this, I'm sorry. But
So
anyway,
go on, Eric. Yeah.
so like I said, this is this takes place in a flashback. Starts out where, you know, Frank and Maria are in couples counseling, and the question is asked, where is home? This is something that he doesn't really want to answer. They talk about something that Maria witnessed, where Frank noticed after a little league game, a guy was taking out his kid's loss on him and later his wife. And of course, Frank deals with him in his own special way. Pre-Punisher, but still. Most guys like that deserve that anyway, but that's an aside. So it goes on to where, you know, Frank's living his life. He's trying to adapt. He plays the role of father, the family man. He talks to his neighbors. He has a really annoying one named Todd who loves, you might get along with him because while his neighbor is cleaning up, he's like, same crap, different day, huh? Get it? Same crap? I'm like, oh dear Lord. Living next to puns. Okay, this guy's puns are worse than yours, Anthony. I'm sorry. But anyhow, it goes on, shows how it goes on to about how he is struggling to adapt with modern life. Because this takes place around Halloween. He's been told to, he's going to a Halloween party. He was told, no masks, no weapons. And he comes in and he shows Maria, look, I'm a bank robber. See, I have a knife and a full face mask. So basically Maria's like, okay, well, you're not taking this seriously. So there's some, obviously builds off the marital issues. She also hates how he talks about the war, but then talking with neighbors, they talk about what's a justified war, which side you think is the good guys. And Frank makes an offhand comment, we start with the people who strap explosives to children and work from there. And that, of course, just upsets his wife further. And she then asks the question, where is home? He doesn't answer. Later on, he ends up walking their dog. And one thing I like about this is sort of a prequel callback to 2000's Welcome Back, Frank. Because while Frank is walking the dog, those of you who might even have seen the 2005 movie might recognize the Russian, who in the movie was played by Kevin Nash. Then further on runs into Manucci before she got the Darth Vader treatment. Now, if you read Welcome Back, Frank, maybe I'll review it in the future because it's a good one. But either way, this kind of, solidifies that, okay, he met the Nucci's before he knew who the Nucci's were. And then he finds out that something hinky is going on in that place because he recognizes mobsters. Oh, hey, you've got that too, yeah. So he goes in, just falls to the wall, comes in, even uses a frying pan. I mean, Frank uses all the weapons. He ends up getting knocked unconscious. And the reason he finds out he's there, or that the stuff is going on, is because there was a woman who was testifying against the Nucci's. And a torturer has been brought in basically to torture and mutilate her son in front of her to try to make her regret, testifying against the Nucci's. Now, of course, knowing Frank, I can't call him the Punisher because he hasn't been the Punisher yet in this one. He decides to, solve the problem in only the way the Punisher can. And of course, he manages to. It gets all nice and cleaned up. But one thing that I hate in any story or any movie is when there's a dog involved and the dog ends up taking a bullet for Frank. And it's like, oh God. This ends up with Maria catching him burying the dog and sees him beaten and bloodied. And, the question she kept asking, where's home? He basically says, I'm dreading it. I still want her to ask. I want to explain, but she already has her answer. So a lot of this, I think, it's in contrast to what happened in the last issue of Punisher. It shows how there were, obviously there were the marital troubles, but it showed that even, before, Maria's first death, there were the problems with the marriage, and this is how Maria, viewed it. But, also the way that the last issue of the Punisher ended, it showed that finally she understood it. This was him. This was what was really home to him. But in the end, it was her that she accepted. So I feel that this issue, it kind of helped, give just a little bit more weight to that decision that Maria made. And I'm still waiting to see what will happen in issue number 10. So, but either way, some people might not like it because it deviated from the storyline, but, I think it helps, like I said, it helps give weight to, how he chose Maria and how Maria feels that she was chosen by him. Even though, it's technically she was not like the first bride. So anywho, I think it's a nice supplement. If you're a Punisher fan, it probably has to go into your collection. So
Yeah, I like that they touched back on the backstory and everything with Frank and his wife. And when he, I agree with the annoying neighbor with that I would have to kind of take him out of the picture.
yeah.
But what the one thing with our characters that were being assaulted in their house by this group of characters, I'm still kind of in the air, is like our little naked buddy that's all tied up on the ground, squealing on Frank and attacking Frank. Is he part of them or is he part of the family? I didn't quite figure out which way that character was going.
Well, if you've read Welcome Back, Frank, you realize that a lot of people in the new cheese are kind of weirdos. So
So he's basically one of their pervs.
could be. It's just when you get Garth Ennis involved in anything, it's hard to tell where things are going. One reason why he's one of my favorite writers.
Yeah, I enjoyed the back history. I loved the whole thing with the neighborhood and stuff, how they did that with Frank. And of course, the dog part I could have dealt without. It's like, for some reason, I had 3 books out of 5 books that I read this week. And the first one was Leatherhead, the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, the best of Leatherhead. Right away shows a elephant being taken down by a bunch of idiots. Then I forgot what the second book was, but that one, an animal got taken out right away. And then this one, it's like, what the heck am I reading this week? But yeah.
Then Slowpokes too. I mean, the animals at least had
Yeah, I like when the animals get the payback. That's all
they got to
right.
fight back a little bit, yeah.
I'm good with the humans getting tortured, but not the animals. But yeah, another good Punisher book. So.
Cool. All right. Well, that'll do it. And we'll talk about some more Punisher, as he had mentioned, with the club discussion with issue number 10. So once that issue is out and we've all got it, and one of Eric's weeks here at the show, we will continue to talk about that run. All right. The next book on my list here, it seems like once a month throughout the last year or two, we been talking a lot about wrestling comics, and here is a brand new one. We have The Gimmick #1, a hard-hitting action drama written by rising star Joanne Sterer. Pro wrestling champ Shane Bryant's ring persona, his gimmick, is forgettable. He's a nice guy, but his secret is more colorful. He has super strength, and when he punches a fist straight through his opponent's brain in front of 2.4 million horrified viewers, everything changes. Now Shane needs a new gimmick and a new life. This comic is done by Joanne Sterer, Elena Gagao, and Rob Steen, and with an extra bonus Erica Henderson cover. Erica Henderson, the artist for the unbeatable Squirrel Girl, so it was awesome to get an independent comic here from Ahoy Comics with some creators that I'm not too familiar with, but then getting drawn in here. I shouldn't say that. I wasn't drawn in here to focus on this awesome cover by Erica Henderson. Seeing her draw something that I haven't seen as far as the wrestling goes. So The Gimmick. Jumped into this one. Very heavy hitter right in the beginning here. As our characters, there's a match going on, and you see there's a feud between a couple of characters, just setting up all of this independent professional wrestling group. And when something goes awry, Shane has to jump into the ring, and it's all in a synopsis, so I will show this very bloodied image here, but it's a crazy splash page as our Shane character decides to reveal his superpowers and literally punch his fist through the guy's head. If you're following this podcast and we talk about Berserker and all the stuff that happens here, and you see these images, we do talk about other things too, not just people. We don't read exclusively comics where people's heads are punched in through from front to back. That just happens to be a common theme going on with some books here. But it fits the theme of revealing that this guy has superpowers, and he's been hiding it. He's been kind of downplaying it. So the whole issue basically is predicated on him being on the run, and he has an old wrestling guy, I think he's like a manager type. I think he's an ex-wrestler that he had once looked up to, from what I understand. But him and this guy basically hit the road, and they're trying to avoid everything because this thing is all over the news. Over 2 million people watch this happen live in the ring, and people are reacting both to Shane, who is the one that did this. We see family members of Shane, and we see family members of the victim, of the wrestler that died right there in that ring. So there's a lot of other moving elements here as this story is just propelling forward, as they basically want to kind of hide from the cops and, you know, all the investigation that's going on. But you're going to find out that people from both sides, both families here of the victim and the murderer, basically, there's other moving plot points happening that's going to play a big part of this. I think this is maybe an 8-issue mini, if I remember that correctly. So it was going to be one of those, you know, to really give it that first issue try. Pretty sure I have at least 2 issues pre-ordered. I think the third's in the current catalog. But, you know, this issue would have to prove itself if I was going to go forward with it. And I thought it was pretty good, pretty compelling. And I'm interested to see what the other family members are going to do, as they're all kind of looking for, basically the world's looking for this guy, and he needs to lay low, but also, you know, keep wrestling and making money, and he needs a new gimmick. So yeah, this is pretty entertaining. Yeah, I never thought, you know, a couple of years ago, if you had asked me, that I would be buying every single wrestling comic that has been coming out. I watched them when I was a kid. I watched as I was getting into high school a lot, a little bit after high school. Then I've taken long breaks in between. So this ain't something that it's just immediately being like, I have to get this. But they've all been proving themselves, and it's kind of fun to see. You know, the world of wrestling and comic books have always kind of intertwined within the fandoms, and the people that are actually professional wrestlers that often, like, you know, they're living superheroes in these gimmicks and in the ring and stuff like that. So there's always that strong connection, and it makes for great entertaining comics. So that is the Gimmick #1 from Ahoy Comics. All right, let's jump back over to Kirby. What you got?
We got the third book in the run. We got Scotch McTiernan's Holiday Party. First came the 420 special. Then came Scotch McTiernan's Halloween Party. Or I guess this is the second one. I thought it was the third one. And now the former Deadpool chums from Voltron again. Okay, let's try this again. And now the former Deadpool chums form Voltron again to bring you Scotch McTiernan's Holiday Bash. Emphasis on bash. The most powerful Scrooges in the human race are visited by the ghost of Christmas future when they try to colonize Mars. All the fun, insanity, and thought-provoking violence of the first 2 comics are perfected in this third holiday installment. So this was the third one. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll buy one to read and one to slab for your descendants. This is done, writers by Gary Duggan and Brian Posehn, artist Scott Koblish. Then Hi-Fi did the coloring on it, and lettering by Joe Sabino. I thought Seth Rogen had a hand in this, but I guess not. Because
Oh, no, I'm just clearing my throat. It just happened to sound like Seth Rogen.
But yeah, this is a fun look at the whole Christmas storyline crossed over with a Mars colonization story. The Christmas characters pretty much gave up on everything. We're way beyond all the Christmas lore and all that. We're into the future. I think we're like 80 years into the future on this one, where we have our astronauts being sent off to Mars to try and colonize that. The people that are running all that are, of course, just money marketing, scamming, doing stuff that they shouldn't, but they're doing it to profit off it and benefit from it. But Scotch is kind of like a old man nowadays. He's got all kinds of robotic body parts and stuff like that, enhancements. And he's just going in to take down our characters. And along the way, we get a lot of parodies on things that have been happening over the past couple of years in the news. You get parodied through here with the government stuff and all kinds of plays. And you may recognize this picture from something in the news in the past couple of years. It's just they play off all that, and those are the characters that end up doing the colonization and doing everything wrong, of course, and our ghost of present, past, future is this tree type, stoner tree type character that goes around, ends up waiting for the next Ghost of Christmas to come out, and ends up realizing he's gonna have to take over that spot too. Then eventually Scotch McTeirnan comes in and does his little thing, but they can't turn the baddie, the guy that's causing all the problems. This character here, he doesn't care. He's just basically putting everything off that they're trying to get through his head. we even get a cute little fart character in this story. Just a little fart.
That's a sentence if I've ever heard one.
You got to have something that's just like Grogu in all these stories nowadays. But yeah, it was a interesting look. I'm assuming the finale of these 3 issues that Scotch McTiernan's about the only thing that is in all the issues. The rest is just different types of storylines, just parodying off everything. We even have ET in here and stuff that they play with. But yeah, if you like those goofy parody comics and you want a 420 version style one, this is a good one to go with. Brian Posehn always does fun work when he gets into these type of comics that I've read. But yeah, you get pretty much parodies of everything you can think of from the 80s on up mixed into these stories. So check it out by Image Comics.
Yeah, that team up of Jerry Duggan and Brian Posehn. I'm doing a little show and tell from an issue that I had both of them autograph when they kicked off their Deadpool run, which just became very acclaimed and led for them to do these independent comics and just be like, all right, yeah, let's keep the partnership going. So those two definitely work very well together. So
yeah, definitely a fun team up.
Cool. All right, let's go back over to Katie. What do you got?
All right, I have my second title, which is Dungeons and Dragons: Infernal Ties. This is by Zub, Dunbar, Cheng, and Uetake. This is issue number 1 by IDW. You can also grab the trade if you like. Now, this team works regularly together on D&D related comics. So it's written by Jim Zub, art by Max Dunbar, colors are by Sebastian Cheng, and the letters are by Neil Uyetake. So you'll see these names throughout the IDW lineup on D&D Comics. This is set in the world of Baldur's Gate, which is a very popular series of video games and then tabletop settings and now comics and all kinds of cool stuff. And it opens with a war between demons and devils, which in the world of D&D are 2 separate entities, on the plane of Avernus, which is basically hell. And they're fighting, and that's going to be setting up for our main conflict later on in this series. And then we see our heroes in Baldur's Gate. Yeah, it's a typical day for our adventurers, getting into trouble, causing a ruckus, fighting some bad guys, looking really cool. And then a very scary figure who is covered in flames and spiky armor and chains and a big sword comes charging into town on a horse and looking like a real tough guy. He is fighting our adventurers, and in the process, he grabs his prey, which was a paladin. And this paladin is a follower of the deity Torm, and he has a daughter named Aubrey who's going to hook up with our adventurers. We find out this paladin was working to keep the balance between demons and devils in hell, and he has a magic box. It appears to be kind of like a puzzle box, and his daughter Aubrey is telling our adventurers about this box, and you know, they're like, well, how is this involved with the ugly knight and the fire horse? And they're like, well, this is all from the character called the High Overseer, and the language is in Infernal, the language of hell. they decide they have to go to the Baldur's Gate version of like Diagon Alley and Nocturne Valley to go and find a purveyor of curios who would speak this language and is willing to work with some people who are not necessarily within the law. And they go there, and he's given them some info, and we get a nice info dump about what's going on in Avernus. And he has some flying cats, like he has like Bengal-sized cats with wings. So I love that. When some demons attack the store, and our adventurers spring into action, where we get to see them really working together as a team with all their different skills and how that balances out. And that takes us up to the end of the issue, where now they have a quest. They're going to have to go and figure out more about this box and avoid all the baddies that are coming their way while they protect this young lady named Aubrey. So let's talk positives. Something I thought this book did, especially when compared to the other one, is showing, not telling. Now, Baldur's Gate is well established within D&D lore, so I thought that rather than telling me that this is a group of friends who have fought together for many years, they show it to me through several instances of combat. Rather than telling me that, oh yes, this is our wizard, she is very kind-hearted, this is Minsk and Boo, they're goofy adventurers. They show it to me through their actions and their dialogue towards each other. Even their info dumps, which you have to have a certain amount, is portrayed through action. It opens up and we see a mind flayer and some of his minions observing these battles in Avernus. We are going to the curio shop provider, and he's telling us, in the context of analyzing this box, about the information we need to know. And I thought that worked much better than the previous book. I also felt like the team was a little bit more believable as a cohesive group. Now that's because they have been developed now for, probably close to like 20 years. But even internally, because I haven't played the Baldur's Gate games, I know they're on my list. Even internally, the balance between them seems good. Nobody's like, oh, super snarky, I'm the obvious one who tells jokes. Like, it just comes natural, and the individual personalities shine while meshing well with each other. If you were playing this in like your weekly tabletop game, I felt like the party is well balanced. It's not all fighters, it's not all magicians. And I also like the fact that none of them are perfect. Like, they're all very good at what they do, but none of them are like, oh, I am magically the world's best cleric. Like, okay, even though you're literally backed by the power of a god, you still have to ask your god if they will help you in this situation. So I like that. The art style is a little, it's different than the other book. The other book looks a little bit more like Sketch-like, where this is, pretty well polished, I would say, which is not a bad thing. This one issue actually motivated me. Like, I have no money right now, but when I do, I want to go and grab some more of these Baldur's Gate stories, because I feel like a good story, nice characters, and a setting that feels lived in. Versus I read A Darkened Wish 1 through 5 because I had issues 1 through 5. If I had just had 1 or 2, I don't know that I would have picked up the rest. But this feels like a very good hook. There are, of course, other Baldur's Gate comics. You can grab an anthology in Days of Endless Adventure. There are some sampler comics. My favorite, Go for the Eyes, and The Best of Minsk and Boo. And then for some individual titles, you can get Legends of Baldur's Gate Mindbreaker, Baldur's Gate Frost Giant's Fury, Baldur's Gate Shadows of the Vampire, and Evil at Baldur's Gate, all from IDW Comics. You should go down to your local game store or your local comic book shop and request Dungeons and Dragons, Infernal Tides, and more. Check it out.
Excellent. Thank you. Eric, what you got there?
I have my second Frank Castle comic. This one, a much different one. Cosmic Ghost Rider #1. I believe this is the second volume titled Cosmic Ghost Rider. For those who haven't followed Cosmic Ghost Rider, he's basically a Frank Castle from the Thanos Win storyline. First, he went to hell, made the deal with Mephisto to become Ghost Rider on Earth to punish the guilty, but he didn't know that there was no one alive on Earth, so basically he went crazy while he rode around on Earth looking for someone to punish. Galactus then came upon Earth, found him, gave him the powers cosmic. Galactus ended up dying, and then Frank became the basically the right-hand man for Thanos. Now I guess he got pulled into our universe, and he was with the Guardians of the Galaxy for a brief moment. He should have stayed. That would have been fun. He also ended up going through time, messing up with the Marvel universe. That was a fun one. But right now we come in with this one. Starts out, we find out that I'm not exactly sure why, but he comes in a much different outfit than he's had before. Going in, finds out that he shot up a casino, everyone in it. But then we realize, oh, whoops, it's a dream. And we find that Frank now, he reminds me a lot of James Hetfield from the mid 90s. He's got the whole mutton chop thing going on. We find out that right now Frank is essentially working in an off saloon in an old desert planet. And I'm not kidding. This actually, look, the town he's in looks like an actual ghost town. A guy comes in, a very shady looking character, is like, I'm looking for Frank Castle, basically. And during this time, there ends up being a hostage situation in the bar. And Frank comes in basically saying, because the guy's looking for Cosmic Ghost Rider, he's like, there is no more Cosmic Ghost Rider. You have the wrong guy. Fight ensues. The guy who owns the barn, the bar he's working at, ends up getting killed. And he's like, no. But then we see him wake up. So it's like, okay, it's another dream. And this time he's lost the mutton chops. And he's like, that had to be a dream, because there's no way I would hesitate to pull a trigger. And that's the first story. So we see that he keeps dreaming. Not exactly sure where it's going to go from here, because we don't know, did the first thing actually happen? And then did the second thing actually happen? It's hard to tell yet. It doesn't really give you much to go on at this point. But what I really like, they had a second story in it where you think maybe he's dreaming again. You see him in bed, you see Frank, and then you find, he wakes up next to Maria, and it looks like she hasn't exfoliated in a while. So basically he wakes up, he's like, okay, this is a dream. I know Maria's dead. One of his old squad mates from Vietnam comes in, is like, we know what you've done. And, he basically uses his Cosmic Ghost Rider powers, make them go away. Next thing he knows, he gets picked up by Galactus, who, in the universe he's from, he lost his head. So now he looks more like Mysterio, but he calls him Galen, which, normally Galactus wouldn't be happy about.
Yeah, that is his original name before he became the Devourer.
He ends up seeing his kids. He shoots his kids because he's like, you're not real. And when it all said and done, he finds out that this was all a vision that had been conjured by an alien who, because of Frank Castle, had basically lost his planet and lost all of his people. So he's actually going in for vengeance against Cosmic Ghost Rider. And you find out he's used a magic talisman to accomplish this. And Frank just tells him, sorry, this isn't going to bring them back. Magic has a cost, and you're only going to lose yourself. And it goes on to basically say that reason that none of this affected him, even though it was all of his crimes just facing him. He's like, that's not going to work on me because everything I did haunts me every day. Then, he walks away in his own portal. So the first story, which is the ongoing one, next issue, you're basically probably going to know as much as you did at the beginning of the first one. Just that Cosmic Ghost Rider is out there. Second story, you basically get to see what happened to a Frank Castle who got to exist for thousands of years, getting over being a spirit of vengeance. And you realize that, he knows what he does, and he's made himself even more aware and makes himself feel about what has, everything that he's done, which might be because he has the penance stare. Because I remember, what was it? The Thanos in that universe actually had Frank give him the penance stare every day, just so Thanos could remember what he did to get where he was. So I like this because it's a much different Frank Castle. Him being alone has caused him to be a little off. So he's somewhat like Deadpool, but not nearly as mouthy. But yeah.
Yeah, that initial run with Cosmic Ghost Rider, the big mystery on was wondering the original identity, and the character really read because it's like, oh, it's got to be Wade Wilson. Like it just had all of that in there, which was a great, little twist to reveal that it was Frank Castle of all people. So,
but yeah, I don't know. Frankly, I think it would be great for this guy and Deadpool to team up at one point. But I don't know if you're ever going to see Cosmic Ghost Rider go to the Earth in our universe.
I just wanted to spotlight that you said frankly. Frankly.
Nice.
You're
a bad influence on me.
Cosmic Ghost Rider always been Frank Castle?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Because there always wasn't a Cosmic Ghost Rider. I mean, it was, like I said, it was just from the Thanos wins storyline.
Yeah, it's like 2018, 2019 or something.
Yeah, I never read that, but I'm kind of a Frank Castle fan, so I wanted to see what exactly this was about, and I like him. He's an interesting character. I love the first volume. He ended up going to baby Thanos to because it's always that thought: if you could kill baby Hitler, would you? Well, he wanted to kill baby Thanos. Instead, ended up raising him as a son. See, this is why I need to do a Cosmic Ghost Rider cosplay, paint my son purple, chain him to my chest. See how that works. The missus will never go for it though.
Sure, cosplay. Or just another day in the household.
Shh. The CPS will get called on me.
Yeah, Cosmic Ghost Rider has been a lot of fun. I've read the majority of it. I'll most likely be checking this one when it shows up on Marvel Unlimited, just because. Yeah, it's pretty fun. So.
Yeah, now I'm interested. I didn't care for the character when I seen the books, and now I want to find out more.
There's a Marvel Legends action figure out there with the whole motorcycle and everything. It's one of those that's like that $30 or $40 tier, but it might be more expensive out of the initial release. But I've been so tempted every time I've come across it. But
yeah, the detail in that is amazing, especially with he was made Ghost Rider with the power cosmic, so now he's like a cosmic cycle. Much better than that weird little silver thing some other guy wrote.
Cool. All right. Always be in arm's reach of a Silver Surfer. That's my motto. All right. Well, that is going to do it for the weekly reviews, but we do have another segment that is part 2 of our previews preview over at the news. All right. Kick into it pretty quick here, just doing a safety save on the old garage band, hitting the old record once again, and we are good to go. I don't know why I started slipping into an accent just slightly, but I'll get back to it here. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the previews preview. This is part 2. Listen to last week's episode for the Marvel and DC picks, but now we're going to dive into the independent publishers and the products, including the merchandise and the apparel and the collectibles. And we're just going to go back and forth, jump around in any old-fashioned jump around this book. I will kick it off here as I flip to an Image Comics title here, the Anthology, because this is created story, art, and cover by Jeremy Hahn, who I had talked about not only meeting at Oh Yeah Comics in beautiful downtown Skokie for a signing event, buying some original art from him, and then checking out The Approach, which is a current miniseries that's happening. I've picked up the further issues. So yeah, I dug it, and I think I'm gonna have some more here. So this is the Haunthology. I like a play on words. From creatures of the night to even more terrifying creatures of the day, Haunthology is an anxiety-inducing collection of 28 short stories and vignettes from the mind of Jeremy Hahn, the writer and artist behind The Beauty, The Realm, The Red Mother, The Approach, and other nightmarish mindscapes. Whether exploring a claustrophobic old house full of nefarious entities or the heavy thoughts one has during the pending end of the world, this very personal project was written and drawn entirely during the COVID lockdown. Features an introduction by Shirley Jackson, who is award-winning horror author of hold on here. Introduction by Shirley Jackson, award-winning horror author Nathan Ballingrud. Then it's just all praises here, but yeah, Jeremy Hahn, horror anthology, play on words. I'm gonna give this one a shot. All right, Kirby.
Capable #1 by Advent Comics. Derek Davidson is just an average high school kid. He's awkward, shy, bullied, and he uses a wheelchair. But one day, Derek suddenly has the ability to run super fast. What will Derek do with his new power? And what happens when more people wake up capable? So I like that they're focused on disabilities and stuff with kids and all that, and bringing it to comics, and hopefully it'll expand out, because I know they did a lot of digital comics back in the day, representing each type of thing that they could come up with. And now I like to see that they're bringing them out in paper form. So check it out.
Cool. Katie.
Okay, my first pick's from Image Comics. We have Something Epic #1. It's by Szymon Kudranski, doing the art and the writing. So the idea is that imagination is real, creative thought takes physical form, with only a handful of individuals known as epics who are able to interact with this wondrous hidden world. I love this for so many reasons, including my own personal theories about creativity. I am excited, hope to grab this. It comes out on May 10th for $3.99. Check it out from Image Comics. That's Something Epic.
All right, Eric.
All right. Looking through all this stuff, there's only one thing that caught my mind, and this is Within Temptation from Opus Comics. Now, I thought, okay, that sounds very familiar, and I'm like, that comic cover does not look like something about temptation. Found out it's based on the album Resist by the symphonic metal band Within Temptation. Story puts, in the distant future, an endless battle rages between two species, an advanced but inherently humanoid species ruled by a techno-organic matriarch on one side, and a cruel race of alien artificial intelligences on the other. Several stories collide to paint a sweeping portrait of the matriarch's life and her struggle to balance what she was created to be with the impossible forces that shape her. So I don't know. Yeah, I've listened to a bunch of music by Within Temptation. I usually like their music. It's fairly poetic. So I'm interested to see how this comic is actually based off of that album. And like I said, for some reason, this is the only new independent thing that caught my eye aside from my ongoing. So, but wait a few months. Let's see. Hopefully it's a good one.
All right, over at Boom, Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer, The Lost Summer. This is one of their 48-page one-shots here. It's a standalone special set in the continuity of the TV series. I'm definitely going to check that out. This is one of those that I don't need to read the synopsis to get hooked. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer got a couple cool cover options, so I'm definitely down for Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer, the Lost Summer one shot. Kirby.
Cover of Darkness, Femme Fatales, #1 one shot by Source Point Press. 4 gruesome tales set in the Cover of Darkness universe uncover the twisted, reimagined origin stories of Bloody Mary, the Invisible Woman, the Bride, and the Phantom of the Opera. Featuring uncanny art by Nat Jones, Bins Altabanis, and the debuts of 2 incredible new talents, Colin Turnbull and Ty Peterson. The last Cover of Darkness was a really fun group of short stories, and I hope these will be too. So, checking it out.
All right, Katie.
Okay, over at Dark Horse from the world of The Witcher, we have The Witcher, Lesser Evil. This is based off the short story by Andrzej Sapkowski. It's written by, the comic book adaptation is written by Jacek Rembis, arts by Adam Gorham and Jordi Belair. So this is adapting the story from the Last Wish anthology, where Geralt comes to a small town and he is told that the local sorcerer could use his help from a group of bandits. And we get to hear about, from the bandits and the sorcerer, why they each think they need Geralt's help to fight the other. It is coming out actually on August 23rd, so this is way in advance, for $17.99. You can get this as well as The Witcher, A Grain of Truth, which is another short story comic adaptation, as well as comics set in the world of the video games from Dark Horse. And I highly recommend them on the whole. They've been very good. The Grain of Truth adaptation was excellent, and it's the same writer working on it, so I'm excited to pick up. The Lesser Evil, which is an adaptation from The Last Wish. Check it out.
All right, Eric.
No, I pretty much, that was it for me.
Okie doke. Over at Archie, they're continuing their awesome run on all of these horror one-shots out of the Chilling Adventures Presents line. This time, it's Jinx, A Cursed Life. Jinx Holiday is a firecracker and a fire starter. Destruction always follows in her wake, and sometimes weirdos stop her and talk about her destiny. It's all combined to create quite the aura of mystery around a 14-year-old girl who just wants some pizza rolls. And while her soul might belong to Satan, her heart belongs to the electric guitar. But one day, when Archie and company come looking for her to help, because Jughead is acting weird, Jinx and her BFF Danny embark on a mission to exorcise Jughead. It's the 2 BFFs versus Satan for the good of humanity, or at the very least, for Jinx to just be free to be a normal 14-year-old girl who just happens to dabble in necromancy and rock and roll. Little Jinx is a character that's been within Archie Comics for almost since the beginning. Dates back to the late 40s. And Little Jinx will be, if you read Archie Comics, you'll get all the little short stories, and then you'll see a little Jinx, like one page or a 4-panel comic strip gag or something like that. And she's always this kind of like grade school type character, and she's just little one-off jokes and stuff like that. So I had a good laugh when I saw Jinx was getting a cursed life, getting the horror treatment. So yeah, they continue to do an awesome job ever since the Afterlife with Archie and the Jughead the Hunger and Vampironica, and just because it happens to be pretty close, I will show off a awesome Vampironica cheerleading statue. She does come with a football field statue platform, but I was able to remove her from there. So everything Archie Horror has just been awesome, as well as obviously the namesake of these one-shots being the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comics. So I'm pretty much going to always buy these things. So I'm happy to see Little Jinx get her horror introduction. Kirby?
We have Elvira in Monsterland, #1 by Dynamite Entertainment. What's scarier than Dracula? All the Draculas. Vlad the Impaler is back, and he's raiding the multiverse of movies to build a monster army and conquer the world. And only one woman can stop him, Vampirella. But she's busy in her own books. So it's up to Elvira, the Mistress of the Dark, and Bane of Vlad's existence to stop his evil plan. It's monster movie madness horror from writer David Avalon. And I go on and on because it's a whole book there to talk about, but all the Elvira runs have been about 5-issue runs, and they've been a lot of fun, and they're all kind of interlinking together. And so this one is going to be falling right after the last one, which was her jumping in and out of all the 80s, 90s horror movies and kind of getting stuck in their realms. And I think this is going to lead right off that. So check it out.
All right, Katie.
Okay, from Boom, I have Buffy, the Last Vampire Slayer, Lost Summer one-shot. If you remember, about a year ago, we read a Buffy Last Vampire Slayer series that was really good. As an outsider to the Buffy fandom, I really enjoyed it. So I thought this looks kind of cool. I'm not sure if it's going to connect to that universe or if they're just borrowing the name, but it is about Spike being determined to keep the last copy of his embarrassing poetry from being discovered. And so the Buffy and the Scooby Gang go on a faux supernatural goose chase down to New Orleans to cover his tracks. This comes out on May 3rd. It costs $7.99 for this special one-shot. Check it out.
Yeah, this one should be separate from what we originally read, but coming up on our club discussion, we've got the I've got the issue right here, the Last Vampire Slayer special. So this one will continue off from what we're talking about, and this one they are setting in the TV universe. That's what they're doing with the new one here. A little more Archie, the exact opposite of the last Archie thing that I mentioned. This is Betty and Veronica, Friends Forever, Game On. This is continuing their one-shots, which features an all-new story that they do, but drawn in the classic Archie style. And then they have, a bunch of related stories over the decades. And this one is focusing on video games. The brand new story kicks off this collection of tales of video games, digital drama, and virtual reality realness. In Be Glitched, Sabrina joins Betty, Veronica, and the gang for some fun at the Riverdale arcade. Unbeknownst to her, rival Amber Nightstone, along with her new pals Trick and Treat, arrive on the scene to cause some magical MMORPG mayhem. They have an excellent Mario Kart inspired cover with the classic Archie characters. I'm so pumped up for that one. It's worth it for the cover alone. All right, Kirby.
They got another Grim Fairy Tales Presents 2023 May the 4th cosplay pinup special, #1 one-shot by Xenoscope Entertainment. I got the one last year. It was a ton of fun because not only do you get a bunch of great pinups, but you also get a really fun. That was one of my favorite short stories that they did last year. So I'm really looking forward to this one coming out.
Excellent. Katie.
I think I'm done for this month.
Okay, and I have one final one, and then I'll throw it to Kirby to go through the rest of the list he's got prepared. This one here is a graphic novel towards the back of the book that drew my attention. It's called Everyday Graphic Novel. This is by David Leviathan and Dion MBD. Every day is a different body. Every day a different life. Every day in love with the same girl. There's never any warning about where it'll be or who it'll be. A has made peace with that. Hold on. A has made peace with that. Even established guidelines by which to live. Never get too attached. Avoid being noticed. Do not interfere. It's all fine until the morning that A. Okay, now I'm seeing what's going on here. This person is referred to as A. A wakes up in the body of Justin and meets Justin's girlfriend, Rhiannon. From that moment, the rules by which A has been living no longer apply because finally A has found someone they want to be with. Day in, day out, day after day, but can Rhiannon love someone who is destined to change every day? For the first time on the page, A's epic story will be brought to life as a graphic novel with the illustrations. Now, as I'm reading this and as I figured out that A thing, I think this was like a movie or like a Netflix movie or something. This sounds, unless there's just something similar there, but I remember that A thing. It wasn't very it didn't stand out as I was reading this synopsis. But then I started realizing that A at the beginning of the sentence is just referring to a character. Um but yeah, this I'm gonna do some research on this because I have some memory of something like this happening. So I'm curious to see if this is because it says for the first time on the page. So I don't know if this is something that they just wanted to do an adaptation of, but I'm going to do some research here. If Kirby, if you got some more to talk about.
All right, Mullet Cop, licensed to krill #1 by Scout Comics. Seafood restaurant owner, aspiring scientist Bob Duncan decided having a successful business was not enough and attempted to improve his recipes by combining his own DNA with shrimp. When one of his lab experiments goes wrong, he turns into Shrimp Man and causes havoc in one of the food courts. Mullet Cop is taken in to infiltrate the scene with a battle-hardened SWAT team, but even they are no match for the merciless crustacean, presented in special shrimp-sized 5x5 format. The last couple runs of Mullet Cop were a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to checking that out. And then we got from American mythology, we got Night of the Living Dead Kin #1. A brand new tale set in the Night of the Living Dead universe. Family is always worth fighting for. Purgatory Hill, West Virginia, April 1968. Something is bringing the dead back to life. Something new, something evil, and something unspeakably terrifying. They're coming to get you. Again. All 14-year-old Melba May ever knew was her small, close-knit mountain community who have helped each other to survive, to live off the land, and to keep the outside world at bay for generations. But after the unexpected death and funeral for her favorite uncle, Melba May sets out into the hills alone to prove her worth to her family and friends. What she ends up in is a far more deadly game of survival, pitted against the last person she ever imagined would want to harm her. There are fates worse than death. I like that they're finally going beyond the original Night of the Living Dead because the last few catalogs were full of constant reprints, remakes, and they're finally giving us something a little bit new. This one, I'm still not sure about. We got Octabriana and the Underground Full Tilt Boogie #1 by Dead Good Comics. Following on from the All-Star Octabriana with Love 50th Anniversary Edition, Octabriana and the Underground are back. Get ready for 2 exciting tales, plus a special 2-page recap of previous events for new readers. GameSpot and Giant Bomb's Lucky James makes their comic book writing debut in Doxing Match, throwing the Underground into a madcap VR metaverse featuring eye-popping art from Simone Ragazzoni. Stu Taylor and N. Stephen Harris take a trip back to the 1970s and God Hates a Coward. A simple heist mission hits a snag when the Underground collide with the combined machinations of Baba Yaga, Sister Disturbia, and the best that the Soviet Red Army has to offer, Mother Russia. I didn't read the previous Octabriana, but the reason I'm thinking about it is in DCBS, they have the previous one with a special deal, and they have this one, so I might check them out just to see where it's going. And then fans of the Barbarian series, they have Queen of Swords, A Barbaric Tale #1 by Vault Comics. Spinning out of the pages of Barbaric comes an all-new, standalone, rip-roaring fantasy adventure filled with mayhem, humor, and a bloodthirsty weapon that just won't stop talking. Sarah is a witch with a checkered past. Ka is an assassin with an agenda all her own. And Deadheart is a barbarian who wants to bash everyone in her path. They'll have to unite their unique skills to track down a powerful foe who's tied their lives together. Get ready to meet your new favorite instrument of death, the evil Gabar, whose spirit is now trapped in Deadheart's sword. Discover the origin of dark magic that turned Soren into the tattooed witch she is today in this totally new story. The perfect place to step into the world of Barbaric for the first time. If you know Barbaric, you got a talking axe that feasts off blood, and now we got a new weapon that talks. It's fun to see that they're adding more to the lore. Let's see here. Spirit World. Well, no, you guys talked about those last week, so we don't have to get into that. Looks like my last one is Vampirella versus the Superpowers #1 by Dynamite Entertainment. It's full throttle throwdown action, courtesy of superstar writer Dan Abnett and red hot artist Pascal Colano. Vampirella and her trusty sidekick Dynamite have become superheroes and are assigned to save a world that looks strangely similar to 1940s Earth, rife with crime and corruption, and two-fisted superheroes who don't take kindly to meddling from interdimensional vampire aliens. Can Vampirella survive an onslaught of conflict from villains and heroes alike, all while solving a murder mystery and keeping her precious sidekick alive? Gonna have to read it to find out. But yeah, that'll do it for me.
All right, and I did get some information on my last one. Every Day is a 2018 American romantic fantasy drama film, and it was based on the 2012 novel of the same name by David Leviathan. So it was a novel in 2012, a movie in 2018, and now being adapted into a graphic novel form in 2023. So yeah, I remember watching that, and I think I'll keep that on the list. I like that premise. All right. Well, unfortunately, our newest club members showed up right at the end of our podcast, but at least they're here for the celebration. So it's time for plugs. That's going to do it for the news. By the way, the preview. Definitely check out the catalogs at your local comic shop, your favorite online retailer of choice. Very important to get those pre-orders in to not only let your store know what books that you want, so they're set aside for you, but also so that they know what to order, and the publishers and the creators, everybody knows what comics are people want out there. So check out those previews. There's hundreds upon hundreds of pages and thousands of items that we didn't talk about. So check out those preview catalogs and finalize those orders. Okay, so time to do some plugs here. This seems to get longer and longer, so I'll try to do my best to kind of barrel through this here. CrimsonCowl.com, that's our website. Go there for some free webcomics. We have Tales from the North, which are based on some RPG campaigns from club members from this very podcast. So check that out. There's a couple chapters and a winter holiday special exclusively at CrimsonCowl.com. You can email us, CrimsonCowlComicClub@yahoo.com. If you have any questions or comments or some future letters page suggestions, email us there and we can answer those questions. We did have club member Katie send a question, and that will be related to our next issue of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World. It's a very awesome question. So next time we talk about that issue, we do have that, but we highly encourage everybody to send out some questions. Yep, those are always fun to talk about. Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube. Subscribe to us there and hit that bell and like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. And we will be releasing Hellboy bonus episodes. We totally didn't forget to record the first Hellboy discussion. And when I say we, I mean me. I totally didn't forget to hit record. So we are going to record the first Hellboy discussion hopefully in a couple days and start putting those out as YouTube exclusive videos covering all of the Hellboy comics. As a slight tease for YouTube, there's something behind the scenes that I've been kind of working on as kind of little side projects. So just stay tuned. You're going to want to keep listening and watching this show, but go over there and subscribe to Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube. The Crimson Cowl, all one word, on Instagram. And then, of course, Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes. Past couple episodes are struggling to get posted, but I got something being shipped in the mail in order to get that taken care of. But subscribe to Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes. That way you can get the audio version of the episodes. But also, if you have the chance, the YouTube ones, we've been liking those and been showing off panels and having special guests on. Speaking of those special guests, we've had Troy Dungera, tunesbytroy.com. That's tunes with a Z. We've also had Matt Fife from Happy Astronaut, happyastronautcomic.gumroad.com. You'll see more of Matt and Troy in future episodes of this very podcast. Also, Kirby has a spin-off podcast called Under the Cowl of MS. Is there anything you wanted to promote that came out this past week, or things that are coming down in the upcoming weeks here at Under the Cowl of MS?
I believe last weekend had my previews episodes, and then we had a episode every day. Well, I'm trying to do 7 days a week now, so we'll have episodes just about every day, if not every day. And then on the YouTube channel, where Kev made a couple more appearances doing scary comic book reviews. So you can check that out on the YouTube too. And we got more stuff coming out this week with a couple fun unpackings. So check them out.
Oh, cool. And if you listen to last week's show, which had a little bump in YouTube views because I talked about the creator Desmond Reed, who is the creator of the Cola Pop Creamies, who I talked about these 4 of these comics that he did. I did do a follow-up, and the Cola Pop Creamies graphic novel has all new material. I wasn't sure if it was going to be these comics thrown into a collection all of its own, but he says it's all new material. Desmond Reed loved the shout out so much that he subscribed, as well as accepted the invite to appear on a future episode of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. So Desmond Reed will be a future guest here on this show. Last couple plugs. I have a hobby artist account over on Facebook and Instagram, Anthony Latch. That's LAATSCH. And also my podcast I did prior to this, we did record a brand new episode of the AB Conversation. Myself and my buddy Brent, we did that podcast starting in 2012, and we did, I think, 308 or 310 episodes. There's only a small selection available on iTunes due to the space limits. But that is a podcast where we talk about movies, television, comic books, video games sometimes, and the most popular segment, food. So there is a brand new special that has been recorded for the first time in like 2.5 years of the AB Conversation. So subscribe to that and check it out. All right, and that is going to do it for all of these plugs. Great episode. We'll be back with much more at the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. But for now, this whole time, I've been whiter than Frosty in a snowstorm.
I've been unwrapping Christmas presents full of deadly sloths.
I can buy myself flowers.
I am Groot.
To be continued.